Morning, Eugene, Compton Gardner. I'm going to take a little walk around my neighborhood while I talk to you guys for a little bit. Let you know what I'm working on, my current project. So I kind of wanted to grow or have tree-lined streets in the community. So I reached out to I live in LA County, so Public Works, and got in contact with the field supervisor, the guy that comes out and examines the need for trees and stuff. And I explained to him my vision and what I wanted to do. So he liked it, and he agreed to allow us to plant some trees. Morning, Brandon. How we doing? All right. So got the neighbors out, birds all around, got the doves flying. Anyway, aside from me working in the medical field, being a father of 3, husband of 1, I'm also president of a neighborhood watch group, which we have over here in my neighborhood. So one of the things I wanted to work on was getting more trees in here. Here's a good example. So we have these large trees over here on one side. On this block here, on this side that I'm walking, it's pretty naked. So what happened was a lot of the elderly residents before I was here, they got kind of frustrated with the trees because it was leaving a mess, probably raising up the sidewalk, a number of different reasons. Some people were scared that it might damage their plumbing or their piping. So they actually removed it, which you're not supposed to do, right? Because you're not supposed to remove a tree unless it's dying, and the county will come and remove it for you. But I guess they got frustrated enough to where they took it amongst themselves to do it, because I went door to door asking everyone who would want a tree, and that's how I got the stories that they're like, oh, we used to have trees right there, but I removed it, So they kind of told me what they did, and as a result of that, when it's hot over here, because there's no shade trees. Then you have the magnolia trees, which no one likes, because not only does it drop a lot of leaves all year round, it also drops those, like these pods or cocoon or whatever it is, the flower petals too. So no one really likes the magnolia trees. So anyway, back to the story. I got with Public Works, and I explained to him that I wanted some trees over here. So pretty nice guy. Not only did he tell me that I can, he's pretty excited about the project as well. I asked him to give me a list of the trees that they plant. So he gave me a list, but then the exciting part is he's told me, if there's any tree that you have in mind, send me a list and I'll see if I could get it for you. That's a lot of power right there, because now I have to choose the right tree for the community, something that's not going to rip up the plumbing, tear up the sidewalk, cause more problems in the future. Something that's not too messy, right? I'm going with evergreen because we do have a significant amount of deciduous trees. So during the winter time, it looks kind of bare as well. So I want to green it up a little bit. But I'm also planting for the future. These trees are going to be around a very long time. So I'm not just planting it in 3 years' time, I'm going to get shade. Even though they do plant some pretty nice sized trees, it's going to be in the ground for a while. Way longer than I'm going to be around. It's a big responsibility that I'm willing to take on. So I started doing my little homework, and the trees that I decided would be good for the community is first it's one called the strawberry tree, which I'll show you later on. I'm going to take a trip down to the nursery so you guys can see what they look like. Or you could go ahead and Google it if you want, but it's the strawberry tree. That one only gets about 15 to 30 feet at most. They have a pretty large one in front of the nursery in Lakewood that I'm going to be going to, so I'll show you that. But the guy explained to me that that one doesn't get too much larger than, I think they have it at maybe 20 feet. They say that they never prune the top because it doesn't get any bigger. All they do is prune out the dead wood from the inside. And then the second one, because the community that I live in is called Willowbrook. This is Willowbrook, California. And apparently they used to have willow trees over here a long time ago. But I didn't want the traditional willow because willow trees need a significant amount of water. Not too drought tolerant. So I found one called Australian willow, which is not a true willow, but the way that it grows kind of resembles a willow. But just to get that name of having willow trees. So the second one is going to be the Australian willow. And that one can reach about 25, 35 feet if you let it. And want to be able to clear the walkway as well. So with maybe a 9-10 foot walk under, to be able to walk underneath it without ducking down. I don't think anyone in this community is 9 feet, so it's enough clearance space. Also provides shade. They don't get too big, so it probably wouldn't shade out the house. You can see back in the day they used to plant these in the front yard, so it's like all over the house there. But it'll probably reach about this size here where you can walk underneath, get a good shade when you're walking or jogging around, or when you're out watering your grass like this gentleman is doing. But I'm pretty excited about that. So today actually he gave me a few cards to go and pass out to see who wants to have a tree. The only thing they have to do is water it, keep it alive for 2 years till it's big enough to basically find its own water source. And so, good morning.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. Surprisingly, I was pretty surprised when I went door to door asking everyone if they wanted a tree, and I was surprised on the number of people who didn't want it because of those reasons that I explained. So we are going to be getting 20 trees in the community because it's a bit of people who do want to bring back the urban forest to the community. And then by doing so, once they see that it was a good idea and how the trees that I selected is not as bad as they thought it would be, and hopefully they'll sign on for the second batch and say like, hey, I want one of those trees. My little kitten, you be safe out here now, you hear? So anyway, lapping back around, back on my way home. But so anyway, there's a number of criteria that has to be met. Oh, this is what I was gonna say too. This right here was one of the trees I was going with initially. It's called the fern pine, which I like it because it don't make too much mess. But upon further research, I found out that these bad boys could get pretty massive and start ripping up the concrete. So that's why I took that one off my list and went with the trees that get a little smaller than that. But it's a nice tree. I think it's the only fern pine that's in the community. So what they'll do is they plant the trees in the parkways, which is technically the county's property, but they ask that you maintain it. And once you have a tree there, you shouldn't be removing it. Even it's kind of weird, right? It's like, this is county's property. You have to take care of it, but you need my permission to take care of it. So anyway, and they said that when I asked them if the county could just come by and plant trees there regardless, they said that they can do that, but they try to get the cooperation of the homeowner and stuff so that to make sure that the trees are cared for, as opposed to just dropping a tree in and letting it go into survival mode, fending for itself. So once they plant the tree there, like I said, all you got to do is make sure it's watered for 2 years, which the people who agreed to getting trees there, they're pretty excited about it. So they're more than happy to take care of the tree, fertilize it, water it. And in my area here, our trees our pruning cycle is on a 3-year. I know some places it's every year, maybe twice a year. I've heard places that haven't had a pruning in like 18 years, but we're on a 3-year cycle. And that's so you could, and that's pruning where they'll come through and trim off all of the low-hanging limbs or do height control. But I did speak to him about like those little suckers that you see coming out the bottom, which you'll see one coming off of this tree that I'm approaching. So he said when I see those to just give him the addresses of them, and he'll send them the public works over to come and trim it. So that's pretty good to get that kind of support from your wherever you live. So that's pretty much it. Just taking that final lap, about a half a block away from home. But here's that tree I was talking about. You can see it here straight ahead, where you have all at the top the tree, and then those little side growth coming all down the bottom, which could block the walkway. I'm gonna have to duck down under this part that's hanging over into the walkway, but what they'll do, they'll come and clean all of that off all the way to the top there, make it look real pretty like. And you can see here this open wound on this tree. What he was explaining is that sometimes these trees will get diseased, and that's the way that they did it back in the day. As you could tell, there was mainly like 2 type of trees here: the willow, not the willow, sorry, the having a brain fart here. Anyway, these big ones here, magnolia, and those other weeping ones that we just passed, that was primarily the main trees that they had there. But if a disease comes, and for a particular species, it would wipe out that whole species, or there's a possibility that it might spread to that species. So what they try to do now, the new method, is planting different varieties so that if something does happen to one variety, it doesn't affect all of them. So that's why I added my own little 2 varieties that I feel are good. They won't get as big as those, but they'll give a good little overshade. And these large trees, these were planted from the generations before me, so that I'm able to get a little shade. But so that's why we're approaching my yard now here. Whatever I plant is for the future generations, is what I try to explain to the community. You know, what I'm doing here is not for me, even though I'm hopeful that I'll be around to reap the benefits, but I'm thinking in the future as well, long after I'm gone from here, the survival of the community. So that's the end of the tour. Yeah, later on I'll take a trip to the nursery so you guys can see get a idea of the trees that I selected, or you could go ahead and Google it, like I said. Another thing I wanted to point out is, if you notice during that whole little tour of the community, everyone have their grass out here. I'm the only one in the community who has a landscape like this, so I stand out. Anyone could find me. I had grass once upon a time, and then right when the drought hit a couple years ago, when we got that drought, I was like maybe a year or 2 into having grass, and I had bought the sod, but I removed it and I went with this because I don't like being out here mowing my lawn once or twice a week or once a week or so. I prefer to occasionally just rip out the grasses or the weeds that's growing through, have my fruit trees, make it look nice and beautiful, and this is what I go with. So these are the natal plums. So this is how I'm living. A little different from everyone else, but I like it. Alright, so here's that strawberry tree I was talking about. H&H Nursery in Lakewood. You can see how the trunk of the tree have this red color when the bark falls off. And all they do is prune the branches on the inside here, and they never touch the top. So they do drop these little flowers, and they drop a couple leaves, but it's a beautiful tree, beautiful trunk. The one that the city would give is a single trunk. This one is a multi-trunk. So usually if you have this single trunk, it just goes straight up and then branch off at the top. The roots are not as evasive as other trees, so it shouldn't damage. I'll try to speak up because these vehicles passing. Shouldn't damage the sidewalk or uh, any plumbing and stuff like that. See, they have their sprinklers right next to it. Let's go inside the nursery here, and we'll look at the ones that they sell in the pots. You can see it right there. Beautiful tree. All right, so here we are. These are the row of strawberry trees that they have, that they're selling. But we won't be buying them. The county will be providing them. It's in their budget. So how they explained it is like they have nurseries that they work with that provide the trees. So, and the reason is because they said that they can't get the tree if the roots are in a tight root ball. So they have different requirements that they have to have in order to plant the tree or to get the tree. Single stem like these, or single trunk, and loose roots, I guess. For me, these would be just fine. All you do is loosen up the root ball and plant the tree. But for them, some nurseries that have them in bigger pots, all they do is up pot them, sell them for a higher price. When you get home, try to plant it, it's just loose soil, so you pretty much just spent an additional $20 or so for soil, for a pot of soil, because the root is the same size. So for me, these would be fine, but I'll just wait to see what they have. That's the strawberry tree. And then the Australian willow should be, maybe I passed it. Let's see. This looks like an Australian willow. Let's check your tag. Yep. That's her. So you can see how this one grows with the lower branches. All we would do is clean that up all the way till it gets to a good height, right? Again, these are not the ones that they're going to be getting from this nursery, but this is just an example of the tree and how it grows. So you see how it has this willow-like growth, but I guess it's not technically an actual willow like the weeping willows and stuff, but because the weeping willows, they'll just hang down, whereas this one, you could see how it grows up, which is why I chose this one, because I wanted to grow up to get that height and then kind of weep down. The leaves will weep down rather than the whole branch weeping down, causing a bit of an issue in the parkway. So this is another good variety. Like this one here. See how this one, these branches kind of weep down? Then you have to always trim the bottom here. Whereas the Australian willow, you just clean off the bottom part and just let it grow. Don't touch the top until you get that height. Then you'll do height control. So you probably won't have to do nothing to these trees for a number of years until it starts to either go over into the crosswalk or like the sidewalk, or hang over in the street where the street sweeper can't get to the edges, the curve. But again, these are beautiful trees. You can see how I have the that red bark on here that flakes off. Once it flakes off, it doesn't grow back. It just becomes smooth like this. And the strawberry tree, the wood is pretty strong, so you don't have to worry about it breaking when it gets bigger. And then it also provides these little strawberry type fruit, which will fall as well. So the flower, once they're pollinated, bees can't really get in there, but hummingbirds and stuff will get their little beaks in there. And once it's pollinated, it gives these little fruits, which you can eat. It's nothing to tell mama about. It's not the best tasting fruit, but you can eat them. They're edible. So that's, again, the tree form. This is a bush form. You can see how it has the low growth there. This one they wouldn't plant because it's a bush form, so it'd have to be that tree form there. Anyway, that is it for a little tour of the nursery there. This is like one of those specialty nurseries. They take good care of their stuff. They're always out here. They have a full team out here, and you could tell just by the way the plants look. Everything is well cared for. It is a little bit on the higher end as far as prices, but so this is probably like $10 more than where I would find it at any other store. For example, this is the Bay Laurel that I was talking about that I might get, but right, it's not that serious that I'm gonna pay that $80 for it, because that's weird. It's the same exact pot, but it went up $10. Let's check that again. Same height, same pot, but it went up $10. Anyway, somebody need to catch that. Well, I caught it, but I'm not buying it. And then there's also the Bay Laurel and like the bush form, the bay leaf in a bush form. That one's $35, but I was looking more at the tree form, not the bush form. All right, we get out of here. Gonna run some errands.